Hi, I'm Curious Cass, and this is Curiosity Junkie. Today's guest is an interesting character to say the least. One of the things I love about him is his sense of humor. He's here today to talk about his company SkyLens, an aerial photography company, and how he started it. So please welcome Bryan Porter to the show. Hey Bryan, how you doing?
Hi, Cassie Brown.
It's so good to see you.
Likewise.
Well, I'm excited that you agreed to come on and talk a little bit about what you do for a living, because I find it fascinating. I was thinking, somehow it came up a couple of weeks ago. Somebody was talking about Google Maps and the aerial views, and I was like, I know a guy who does that, and I can find out more about it. So I reached out, and you agreed to chat about all things aerial photography.
Yeah, you didn't even have to twist my arm.
No, I didn't. No, you were like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. I love to talk about myself, you know that.
Everyone does. Everyone
Yeah.
does. Let me just kind of tell people how I know you. We went to high school together, and you were in a rock band that a bunch of us would just go. It was so much fun.
TNT.
Yeah. TNT, that's really how I remember it. TNT, yes. Does that take you back to the long hair and the furry boots? And
yeah, my current wife gets a kick out of looking at the pictures.
Sure.
Hair halfway down my back, earrings, lots of makeup. It was the 80s, you know, the Poison Motley Crue era.
Absolutely.
I did that until 96. I think I retired completely from the music biz. But I was much thinner back then. Lots more hair.
You can wear those tight pleather pants and
yeah, I can't do that anymore. Or well, shouldn't.
Right. No one really should. No one really should. You go from rock and roll into, what do you go into next?
I became a computer consultant, actually. I had a Apple Macintosh computer consulting company. And that's what I did for about 10 years after the music biz.
That must have been back in the days when they were like that yellowy
beige, that lovely beige. But a computer was $10,000, so people thought nothing of spending $1,000 for an afternoon for me to go clean their hard drive.
What made you get out of that?
I got tired of it, and the Apple stores, the corporate stores started opening up, and they were more competition, and they were driving the costs down. And the cost of computers went from the $10,000 down to $500. And in the meantime, 9/11 happened. I got to thinking, well, what if one of the passengers could have got this bad guys out of the cabin? Could a regular guy land that airplane without any training? I think weird things like that sometimes. So I went and bought a flight simulator, and bought a computer just for the flight simulator. And
oh my God! Just because you had this theory, you wanted to test. I love it
like that. So I started messing around with this flight simulator and just trying to land a plane, take off, all that stuff. I load up the little Cessna 172, and I finally figured out how I could, I got to where I could take it off and land it, and not properly, now I know, but at the time I was like, okay, so I was playing with that for a while, and then I would drive by the airport in Lee Summit, Missouri, and I really ought to stop in there and take some flight lessons. I got the money to do it now. I didn't when I was a kid, thought about it when I was younger, but stayed with the music thing. So I popped in there to get some flight lessons, and they had an introductory flight, set it up for the next day. And so the next day I show up, I come over the hill to the airport, and as I come over the hill to the airport, there's a house on fire, and there's pieces of airplane everywhere. And I'm like, oh, and fire trucks and everything else. So I make it up to the airport, and it turns out the airplane was one of the airplanes that the same company was running out, and somebody had crashed, and unfortunately they didn't make it. But
my goodness.
They were like, do you still want to fly today? And I'm like, okay. I mean,
what are the chances it'll happen twice in one day?
Exactly. They postponed that flight. I came back the next day or two and took that flight. And I was like, oh yeah, I like this. So I was hooked. So got my private license in about, I don't know, it was about 6 months. Never really thought about doing anything commercial with it. Still had the computer company. At some point, I found out my second wife was dating her third husband. I didn't know about that.
Oh.
So that
I like
marriage
that.
went down the toilet, and I thought about, okay, I'm going to I was in the doldrums a little bit. It's like, all right, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to fly. So I went back out to the Lee Summit Airport and talked to them about, renting a plane. Got to talking to them about doing their website. Worked out a deal with them where I would just do their website and get free flight time. So I got a lot of flying in, usually at night after my computer shop was closed. But I did
That's
that
fantastic.
I'm always working deals. And I got to the point where I just wanted to give up the computer thing, and got an offer from the avionics shop over in Topeka. I'm talking to the guy over there. He goes, yeah, I need a technician over here. Can you do avionics? I go, well, I never really have. I know electronics. I know computers. He goes, can you read a schematic? Yeah. Okay, you're hired. So I sold my computer company and went over there and worked over there in Topeka for about 7 or 8, 9 months, something like that. And then he hit a downturn and I got laid off. I had my commercial license. I'd gone ahead and gotten that. I didn't have a multi-engine license. One of my former instructors called me and said, hey, if you want to do something with the airline industry, they're starting to hire. I went on one interview. They seemed to like me, fingerprinted me, which is always like, okay, they're interested.
Yes.
But they ended up not hiring anybody. And then the airline industry went into the toilet again. So, well, now what am I going to do? So I'm messing around on the internet, looking at these different aviation boards and whatnot. And I come across this website called Jet Careers. And it's based around getting pilots jobs, helping pilots find jobs, that kind of thing. And I see a picture of a photograph of one of the aircraft that I now own. And this pilot's talking about flying all over the country, in this little Cessna 172, seeing all the sights and all that. I'm like, that sounds pretty good to me. I'm single, I'd love to travel like that. And so I could see the tail number on it. There's a registration number. Yeah. So I start searching that. I don't think it was Google yet, probably Yahoo or something like that search. Start searching that, and I come up with a website of a guy who owns that company. And as it turns out, his last name is also Porter. We're not related. I sent him a message and said, if you own this aerial imaging company, I'd like to work for you. And I got a phone call the next day and talked about, he hired me over the phone.
Wow.
So off I go. And I did that for 3 months about, and then the season ended and he offered me the chief pilot job the next year to come back. So the following year, I was chief pilot. I still wasn't making much money, but I was having a blast.
Exactly. You're like, that's all right.
Yeah,
You're having fun.
So bopping around all over the country. I mean, I went, coast to coast, basically, in this little airplane.
That's what I was just thinking, like in a tiny plane. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it flies like the rest of them.
Right. That's true.
But as long as you don't do something stupid.
Right. Yes.
I didn't do too much stupid, apparently.
Apparently, you're still here.
Yep. We're getting into the story of how this company happened, right? Is that what
I love
it. At some point, that owner lost his contract. The way it works is we supply an airplane with the proper modifications, the proper holes in them for the cameras, and there's computer racks in there. It's not just like
Yeah, we're just standing there taking a picture.
Right. Yeah. It's
my iPhone.
literally a $500,000 camera rig with military spec GPS and all this stuff. I mean, it can measure the roof on a house. It's really high tech stuff.
Wow.
Above my pay grade. I mean, the technology of the cameras is beyond what I even dealing with, because I wasn't sure what was going to happen if I was still going to have a job. And what had happened immediately prior to that is I met my current wife in Louisiana and had become kind of a ground-based manager for the company and was managing the other pilots. And I thought, I'm in basically between Baton Rouge and New Orleans, Louisiana, and a good pay down here is like $9 an hour for most jobs. So what am I going to do if this company goes through the floor? So I tried to talk him out of it, because I had a good working relationship with the folks there. The owner was more of an absentee owner. I'm the one chief pilot. I dealt with dealing with the with our client, and they design the camera systems and all that, and they sell the projects and tell us what projects to do and all that. So I had a good relationship with them. I started looking for ways to start my own company and with my own planes and all that. So initially, they didn't want to do that. They didn't think I'd have the capital for it. They didn't, they liked me personally, but they didn't think I'd be able to pull it off. So not the first time I've been underestimated. But
right.
So like I went home and told my wife, I have got to find a way to buy some airplanes and get that contract.
Right. So was she like, I'm sorry, what?
Nope. She was like, go make shit happen, honey. So
I love it. It's a good woman. That's a good woman.
So it was, I'm going to skip a whole lot of stuff here because it was really a game of chicken and poker and,
really?
Chess. So I just kind of had to wait. Just like, okay, I made an offer to him. I partnered up with my friend here and they have a flight school and a maintenance shop for aircraft. And I partnered up with him and, the whole time I'm negotiating with our client, I'm negotiating with my former boss, I'm negotiating with the FBO on this airport that was renting us this hangar. I've got all these kind of, plates in the air, balls in the air, however. And I just had to kind of wait everybody out. At some point, I was all they had. So all of a sudden I'm sitting sitting on the throne and they're like, do you think you can get the rest of those planes from your old boss? And I'm like, I think I can.
Let me see what I can do.
So I mean, we were getting loans from places that, like loan people money for the, title loan places and things like that. I mean, it was crazy what we had to do to make it happen, but put the financing together. My former boss was cool enough to finance me on, owner financed me on about 2/3 of the planes. So we bought the whole fleet and
got lucky. That's fantastic.
Yep.
Not lucky. You're a good guy. People know you work hard. It says something about you that they would trust you.
Well, there's a line in the movie Titanic. And the bad guy, what was that guy's name? Billy Zane was the actor that played him. He was the bad guy.
Yeah.
But they're sitting around having dinner on the Titanic, and the discussion comes up about how are you successful in business and in life, and what do you do? And somebody says, well, that has a lot to do with luck. And Billy Zane says, a real man makes his own luck. So I was like, I understand what he means by that.
Yes, yes. You're like, I totally get that now.
you have to position yourself to take advantage of opportunities that come, and don't be afraid to push the envelope. Don't be afraid when somebody tells you can't do something. Don't believe them. So that's
interesting because a lot of people would just kind of be like, well, things just aren't working out. It becomes you have to really work for it. And then it becomes like, well, what if it doesn't work? And what if I fail? And that fear will just get inside you and mess with your head. So kudos to you for.
I mean, I was either going to make this happen or I was going to be a door greeter at Walmart. So those are my two choices in Hammond, Louisiana. So
you're like, so that just didn't seem like something I'd want to do.
Nope. Yeah. And at that point, we just, we started doing, since my partner's a mechanic and I was an avionics guy, I did all the upgrades on the avionics. He did the maintenance on the engines and all that stuff. And we got the fleet in good shape. The fleet wasn't in great shape before. It was okay, but I mean, they were airworthy, but they didn't look so great.
Mm-hmm. But they need a little TLC.
They did, especially interiors and, radios and things like that really need to be upgraded. So, I mean, we were both working 100 hours a week for 2.5 years. And it was, I mean, I rarely saw my wife awake during those first couple of years. And when we get through this, I'm going to buy you a house. So
she's like, okay.
Yep. No, she was always cool with it. My current wife is an absolute dream. I mean,
Oh,
I couldn't ask for somebody who's easier to live with. And I know I'm not
that's-
100% easy to live with. So,
you deserve someone wonderful, Bryan. I'm so
yes.
glad you found her. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
me too. Me too.
And
So,
that you are telling me you're putting in hundreds of hours
yeah.
of work. That's something, I think that's the message, people. You have to hear that. It takes that hard work. It takes the drive to really push to make something happen, because you could have gotten in there and kept the radios and just puddled along, but you got in there
Yeah.
and you did it right.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
There's a lot of the aspects to being successful in a business, and it goes for other businesses too. I always say, if you give somebody a nice office, they're much more likely to want to go to work. When with you got a bunch of ratty airplanes, your pilots aren't that motivated. So I wanted to make sure they were nice. So
Right.
I'd be in here at midnight or 2 in the morning, like refabricating seats, things like that.
I would think too that there's a little bit more respect. Like if it's a little, you get in there and you're like, it doesn't really matter. Like, I'm just gonna throw this
Yeah.
here. It doesn't matter if I scratch
Yep.
this or ding this. Nobody really cares anyway.
Yeah, your employees will, in my case, mostly pilots, but I have mechanics and administrative staff. They take their cues from the boss. If you don't care, they don't care.
Right.
And that's a big part of success, I think, is you got happy employees, you're in a much better place to be successful than if you got employees showing up like, I just got to go to work because I got to make the money, and can't wait for 5 o'clock, or whatever. So
I was reading on your website the previous pilots and what they were saying about the job, and almost every single one of them referenced the owner. And I thought, yeah, that would be Bryan.
yeah.
The connection is so important to letting people know they're valued. So that's great.
I mean, sometimes a person's job, they don't own the company, but their job is kind of a source of self-worth and happiness for them. And if there's something at that job that's, they're either being treated like a number or, just sort of a fungible widget, we can, all right, well, we don't care if you stay or, go, we'll find somebody else. If that's the attitude that they perceive, whether it's necessarily what you want to give off or not, but I have to make sure that they don't perceive that they understand that we value them and they're a part of my success here. So we've got people here. I can't do 20 airplanes by myself. And
But on the pilot side of things, do you get a lot of pilots that are trying to get specific hours? Because I know that whole pilot thing, you got to have hours before you can jump up to this, and I don't know
let's
that much about it.
Let's talk pre-COVID, post-COVID, because they're two different worlds now.
Seriously? All right, let's talk it.
Pre-COVID, the airlines were starving for pilots. They were doing crazy stuff, like hiring pilots before they even had enough hours, getting them to sign a contract, waiting for them to get their hours doing something else, such as working aerial imaging with a company like mine. Well, a couple things happened. I don't know if you remember, was it 2009 or I think it was 2009? There was a crash by an aircraft in Buffalo, New York. And they had congressional hearings on this thing and basically found out that the pilots weren't all that trained. They weren't getting enough sleep. They were being overworked. They were one of the co-pilot was living in Seattle but working in New York, so she had to deadhead a flight from Seattle to New York to start her shift. So she's 8 hours before she's even started working, she's already been awake and all that. So anyway, they figured this stuff out, and Congress being Congress, they decided to just throw a bunch of rules at it that didn't really make that much sense. But one of them was this. They've decided that a commercial pilot that used to need 250 hours to sit in that right seat of an airliner now is going to need the same number of hours as a captain, which is 1,500.
Oh, wow.
So all of a sudden, all these guys that don't have any more than 200, 300, 400 hours are a long way away from working for an airline. So you've got all these pilots now that come out of school. They get their commercial license at, it's called a certificate actually, but the commercial certificate they get at 250 hours. Well, look how far they got 1,250 hours to go till they can fly right seat. Aerial imaging is one of the few businesses where what's known as Part 91. That's the regulatory section in the federal aviation regulations. We don't have as many regulations as the airlines do or a cargo carrying outfit might have. So we can hire a pilot at 250 hours. I try to hire them with more than that, but I mean, we can still do it. So this is a place where they can come. All of a sudden, I got pilots coming out of the woodwork. I'm talking pre-COVID still. They want to go to the airlines, but they can't get the hours they need to legally fly as a first officer for what we call a Part 121. That's scheduled airlines. So it worked out fairly well for me. It usually took them actually sometimes 2 seasons. If they only had 250, 300 hours, they would need 2 seasons to get 1,500 hours. But worked out fairly well for me. I'd have enough pilots stay from the last season that could train the new guys, and it flowed along pretty good. COVID happens, and now those pilots have nowhere to go because the airlines are not only are they not hiring new pilots, they are furloughing current pilots like crazy.
Yes.
And those pilots have got no place to go. So right now, almost all of my pilots from last season are coming back this season because that's all they got. So
I flew into Kansas City a few weeks back to see the grandbaby and my son, and they're lined up at the Kansas City airport. They're just parked rows
Delta,
and rows. Yes.
Delta rented one of the runways to just park their entire fleet, good portion of the fleet. Yeah, wow. I saw that picture. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm like, what is going on here? And then I flew back here and landed in Arizona's a pretty good sized airport. And I go down to get my bag. There is one baggage carousel going, and I think 2 flights had come in at 7 p.m. on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
It was like a ghost town. It was kind of freaky. I was just like, what is going on? So yeah, I'm sure you probably have an abundance.
Yeah, my former pilots, I keep in touch with everybody, they have little reunion pictures I get on Facebook all the time of 2 of my former aerial imaging pilots, and now they both got captain stripes and, hey, look who I ran into, so that's kind of neat.
Awesome. That is cool.
A couple of months ago, they were telling me, I'm like, what are your loads like? And they're like, we may have been 15% or 10% on this flight, so now it's crowding up. They're compensating. They're having fewer flights, and then more people are getting on them, which is probably why more people are getting sick. But one of the reasons.
Well, it was interesting. I flew Southwest, and they kept the middle seat open, and they required you to have a mask on the whole time, unless, of course, you were drinking something or eating. And they only served water. It wasn't like they were encouraging.
Right. That's a good idea. October, I got to train new hires. And we normally did 2 weeks of classroom, and the classroom's like 20 foot square. We'd have 12 people, 14 people in there. We're not going to do that. We've got the forehead thermometers. We've stocked up on those, stocking up on masks. We wipe this place down constantly. Just bought some Honeywell air filtration systems for all the indoor places in here. But it's
a challenge.
Different world. Yeah. We're defined as an essential business because a lot of the aerial stuff we do is for 911 first responders, mapping. So those good folks in the fire trucks and police cars know where they're going and all that good stuff. But,
now that's cool. So November starts your like season, I guess. You fly year round for some projects?
We will probably fly in every month this year except September for the most part. We've almost always got an airplane in the air somewhere. There's just a lot more of them during the regular season, which is November 1st through May 31st. Okay. The reason that season is there is because this will make sense when you hear it, but somebody wants pictures of the ground. They want to be able to see the ground. They don't want to see the tops of trees. So the leaves are off the trees.
Right.
Different parts of the country in that time, but that's why we generally don't shoot much in the summer. I've got 3 airplanes in your state right now because, well, you know, how many green trees you got out there? Not too many, right? It's
Get a lot of cactus. You don't have to worry about
cactus.
leaves.
Right, right.
Right. So when you start in November, what is it exactly you guys do? And I know there's some
Okay.
stuff you can't really get into, but what's the
Yep.
theory behind it?
Some of the eventual customers are like CIA and Homeland Security and whatnot. So there's some
Oh, yeah.
stuff we can't talk about.
Right.
Plus, the camera systems are super high tech. I mean, they're trade secrets for our clients. So, like, we can't have the pilots that are instructed. They can't take any pictures of the camera systems or anything like that. Again, we're a provider for that client. They design the camera systems, and they're huge. The original company started out as aerial imaging for roofing companies. I guess it's pretty lucrative because they came in with a lot of money, and they bought out the original company that started the camera systems. They were essentially renting their services, and then they had enough money to just buy the whole company, so they did. The company's called Eagle View.
I worked for a roofing company. Oh my gosh.
You've probably seen that name then.
I have, yeah. When you said that, I was like, I know this name. Oh my God, that's hilarious. Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
So our aircraft there are all the holes cut in the right places. And I mean, there's 5, 6 cameras in these things, different, you know, up the side, down the, you know, straight down, all that. So that's how you can, like, if you get on like the mapping services like Google or Bing or whatever, you can kind of do a 3D and you can like see the side of a building. Our client actually designed that oblique camera system to allow to do that, to be able to see the sides.
Is everything done from the sky then?
Mm-hmm.
With those cameras, there's nothing on the ground that somebody's got to be here. And
there are like we don't deal with it, neither does our client, but like I know Google and some of the other companies have street based, like they'll have a camera system that kind of does what ours are doing, same sort of principle, but it's on like a truck, the bed of a truck sticking up, and they drive down a street, and that's how you can get down and look at a street, look at a house and all that stuff. That's all done from the ground on a vehicle. But the stuff from the sky, even zooming down to where you can see, you know,
you can see in somebody's pool. I know what you're doing.
Oh yeah, yeah. You can see people. You can see, you know. I mean, you may not be able to read a license plate, but you can certainly see a license plate. And we actually don't get to see the full resolution, so you might be able to read the license plate if you got the, you know, the stuff that's going to the military and the CIA and all that. I don't know. All we do is we're putting in a hard drive in this system, and this computer's running everything. The computer, there's a screen for the pilot, and they're hitting go, and it's kind of like there's a device on the eyebrow, what would be the dash of a car, the eyebrow of the airplane, that's telling them where to go. And they get on a line, and they just got to keep the airplane on that line. They get to the end of it, they do a 180. It's like tilling a garden in the air. And they get done with one garden, and then they just move to the next garden and the next garden, and do a whole city, do a whole county that way. And sometimes it takes a month, you know, 2 months to do one city even. So
crazy. So what's the majority use for this?
The primary customers are usually the counties and parishes, and they're looking for tax revenue. Who built a pool? Somebody built a pool, so we're going to have to tax them for that. But some of the contracts are directly from government agencies, you know, federal government agencies. Most of them are counties, but sometimes we'll get a city contract, usually a larger city. But I think initially it's for tax revenue stuff. So I'm a little big brotherish on that. You know, I'll apologize in advance.
You're like, look, I don't own that company. I just own the flying part.
That's exactly right. So if you don't want something to be, you got something in your backyard you don't want anybody to know about between November 1st and May 31st, hide it.
Take it inside, cover it up.
Yeah.
Oh, that is great. Hey, how long have you been doing this now?
12 years, going on 13 years. And then I started this company, let's see, we formed the corporation in July of 2014. So we're 6 years old now. Are
you still loving it?
Well, it was more fun to fly.
Right.
I mean, now I spend my days doing like unemployment paperwork and insurance stuff, and, you know, boring stuff. You spend most of your life worried about only money, and now it's like the one thing I don't have to worry about, I worry about everything else, you know. So
Right, which is
got
nice.
a lot of people on your, you know, that I'm responsible for. And yeah, we just had an airplane crash in Tucson actually 2 months ago.
Really?
And, yeah, nobody got hurt. We have never had I think the worst injury we've ever had is like a minor black eye. And those kind of things just, you know, they're a gut punch for a while. And, you know, we try to train and train and train these people. I mean, they've got commercial licenses, but, you know, 250 hours, and a lot of them have come out of what we call pilot mills. They're basically pilot schools that are, you know, focused on, you know, get your test
Cranking them
passed,
out.
get out of here. Yeah. I wish they all came in here with 5 or 6 years of experience flying around, because sometimes, you know, the littlest mistake will, you know, put your airplane in the dirt. So
Right.
We've only had 3 mishaps. They've all been within the last 18 months. For 12 years, I never had anything. I mean, we had some close calls, but fortunately, nobody's, you know, the only thing is I've gotten hurt of the planes. I mean, all 3 planes are totaled. That's why they pay me the big bucks, I guess, because I got that weight on my shoulders. But
oh, I love it. Well, hey, let's do what I call my final 5.
oh,
And
you do this with everybody?
Yeah, I do it with everybody.
Awesome.
Let's just jump in. We'll do the first one. What is your favorite word?
That's probably a tie between moist and placenta.
All right. Why moist or placenta?
They just sound funny. They just make me kind of laugh when I hear them. So those are my favorite words.
Yes. And you know, there are so many people out there. Somebody else said moist is their favorite word because it drives other people crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think my second wife hated that word. So
that's probably what you like.
That's it. Yeah.
I love it. All right. What turns you off?
Dishonesty. Big time.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
And you know, maybe a close second would be people who can't distinguish the difference between an opinion and a fact. Makes me nuts.
What sound or noise do you love?
The sound of, in the summertime in Kansas City, the cicadas.
Ah.
Do you like those too? Do you remember those?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Weird noises. I like that and a loud metal fan that they probably haven't manufactured since the 70s. But,
oh, wow. An old metal, like the big old metal fans.
They have a nice good whir to them, you know. They're not plastic and all that. So, yeah.
Yes, I remember that at my grandma's house, right?
Yeah.
That's funny. Yes, the cicadas. Oh my gosh, I haven't really heard the cicadas in a while. When I was in Kansas City, I got to see lightning bugs again. I really haven't seen I forget. I haven't seen them in a long time. They were just everywhere, and I'm like, oh, I miss those, but I don't miss the June bugs. So
yeah, those are
good
obnoxious. Trade. We have those down here too. They're obnoxious.
They just like latch on and can't get rid of them.
Or even if they don't latch on, they hit you in the forehead or something and bounce off. It's like, what was that? Yeah,
right. I got long hair, and they were always getting tangled up in it. Just like there's no way to get them out.
Yeah,
flailing around like an idiot.
They serve no purpose. I don't know where they're at in the food chain, but we just need to eliminate them completely.
Right. Absolutely. What is your favorite cuss word?
Well, I use them all, as you know,
right.
Fluently. I think shit, because shit is just, I mean, you can use shit in so many ways. Shit can be, there's shit on my desk, you're just referring to stuff. Or if you have a dog in the house, the dog shits in the house, that's actual shit. And you can even use it as like, you know, a term of, you know, chagrin. Oh shit, the dog shit in my house. So
yes.
Yeah, shit's very versatile.
Yes. All right. What profession other than the one you're currently doing would you love to attempt?
I think this was the last one, wasn't it? Let's see, a rock musician, computer tech.
Right, I know, right? Dream jobs, you've done them all.
Well, one thing I plan on doing when I retire, I'm going to start a nonprofit to help people who've been attacked by pit bulls. More often than not, a pit bull will go his entire life and not kill anybody. But do you really want to have, a ticking time bomb in your house with your kids? I'm going to start a nonprofit that helps folks either with medical bills and legal fees. That's what I'm going to do in retirement.
Right. So your nonprofit would be helping people who have been attacked.
Legal assistance. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. What a great thing. Good for you.
Yeah. Arizona's crazy. I was flying when I was flying for my former company. Air traffic control comes on and says, 14 Zulu, do you see a sandstorm off your left wing? And I look over and there is this terrifying, it's a wall of sand. And I'm at 5,000-6,000 feet, and it's, I'm like, oh God, what am I getting into out here?
Right. Yes. They're a thing and they happen.
Yeah. You don't want to fly into one. So
no, they're like adamant if you're driving, you just stop, pull over, stop, turn your car off, and just wait.
Your car will be the color of a DeLorean if you don't. So with an airplane, it'll just clog up your air intake, and eventually you'll land somewhere. So,
oh, right. Maybe not where you intended.
not where you want to. No. There's one of my airplanes out there. It's in pieces.
Yes, that would be awesome. Yes.
It's getting its annual.
Getting its annual.
Yeah, they get airplanes have to have an annual inspection. It ain't like a car. You have to tear the engine, apart to a certain degree and take out pieces of the plane and inspect cables and all this stuff. So it takes a long time. So it's like 4 mechanics. Plus my partner, we barely get it done in 4 months. So, well, if you're going to crash, we at least want to make sure that the airplane is not the reason. So
yes,
and it rarely is. Almost always not the reason that the airplane has gone bad.
I'm glad that you're happy and surrounded by wonderful women who support you and love you. And thank you so much. And everybody else, thank you for tuning in to learn a little bit about aerial photography and everything else we talked about. It was kind of all over the place, but thanks so much.
That's me, all over the place. It's my
right? Me too, ADD. We'll see you soon.